I am live and I'm trying to get this. Okay, that's better. Maybe I can sit right here for a minute until the light goes out. Let's see how we're going to do this. Well, welcome to the good fight. I am trying to figure out this lighting. Yes, trying to figure out the lighting. Thank you all so much for joining us for the good fight. We are here every single Tuesday. And I did not think that I would be live on today because I told you that I'm super excited to announce that that I'm now taking a class. I was just trying to cut off I'm putting down do not disturb. I'm taking a class in phlebotomy and I'm super excited about it. Um, it's something that I never thought that I would do, but just being um in the room with my mom, being in the room with my mom and she's having to draw blood is something that I was inspired to do. And so I wasn't expecting to be here on today, but they canceled class for the holidays. So here I am. So that means that there are only 3 Tuesdays, the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th, where I've just decided I'm going to do I'll just pre-record, and then starting back in August, we'll be right back live again. So thank you for your patience with me already. I'm anticipating your patience. I really appreciate it. I don't really know what to say about the lighting. This is what I normally do, but doesn't seem to be working today. So we'll just roll with it. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I want to remind you that Just Talk Consulting is what makes it possible for us to show up in this space every single Tuesday. Just Talk Consulting is my own firm where we truly believe that we have the power to manifest change. We have the power to realize a world that is more just, more equitable, more inclusive, and more peaceful. And we can do it through dialogue, strategic dialogue, transparent dialogue, vulnerable dialogue, open dialogue, honest dialogue, intentional dialogue. But it's the kind of dialogue that moves us to act. So we are just talking, but we are just talking about justice in a way that inspires us and motivates us and compels us to figure out our next steps so that we can continue in the struggle toward collective liberation. So Just Talk makes it possible for us to be here. And so we are grateful I am grateful for it. I really, really am. I want to make sure that I remind us of that as often as possible. Also want to begin by saying Sawubona. Sawubona is the Zulu tribal greeting, which on its face means hello. But when we dig a little deeper, we learn that it's an invitation that can be accepted or declined. You can decide that you don't want to be received in this spirit of oneness, and you can decide to operate in a way that does not respect the whole of who we are as humans. That is absolutely your choice. But if you decide that, yes, you are going to accept this invitation to bring the whole of who you are with all of your ancestry in to this space, and then to allow me to bring the whole of who I am, including my ancestry, into the space, and together figure out how to interact human to human, then your response to Sawubona is yay, bo. So yes, yay, bo Sawubona. Yes to the invitation to be one with you. So Sawubona to you on this night. You are welcome in this space, the whole of who you are, with all of your experiences, with all of your heritage, with all of your history. You are welcome in this space. So I do want to say Sawubona. I see T back there. Y'all see her coming in the door. She's been sitting in the park. Look what you've been doing in the park. On the phone, probably talking to the dogs, probably watching the birds and the squirrels, probably. That's probably what she's been doing. But yes, so we want to say Sawubona to you and to welcome you into this space in the spirit of oneness. Also want to make sure that you know, if this is your first time, or even if you just need a reminder because you come all the time, but you just need a reminder that there are ways that you can engage with the good fight on tonight. One of the ways that you can engage is to see yourself reflected in a mirror. So there's something that's going to be said, there's something that's going to be read or shared in this space that resonates with you on a very, very deep level, where your body recognizes the words, it knows the feeling, it is aligned with what is happening, what is being experienced in the room. And so that is one of the ways that you can engage, is just to see yourself, to find yourself, to locate yourself in this session, in this conversation, in this dialogue. Another way that you can engage is to look through a window. So someone else's story is centered and you really have no clue. You didn't have any idea. This is your first time hearing it, your first time thinking about it, your first time engaging, and you have the ability, you have the gift, you have the privilege of sitting back and not having any responsibility. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to ask any questions. You don't have to learn anything. You don't have to express anything. You simply receive it as the gift that it is, and you learn more about your neighbor. And then the third way that you can engage is to walk through a door. And so, after you have experienced something in this space, you might decide that you want to learn more about it. You want to talk more about it. You want to engage. You want to be educated. You just want to continue the conversation. And so, that's what we mean by walking through the door. So, it's beyond the 8 o'clock hour where you are still thinking, still marinating, still considering, still rejecting what has happened in this space. Or you can show up and comment while we are talking. Even if you comment when we are not live, it'll pop up on my feed and we can have a conversation offline. That is always a joy as well. For those of you who go out and tell other people to listen in, I am grateful for that. Yes, yes, yes. I am so very, very grateful for you and for all of that you do to support the good fight. So thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us on this night. This is the 4th of July, where people are with their families. People are celebrating in any number of ways what we call Independence Day. It is the country's day of independence, dating back to 1776, which is the day that we wrestled our freedom, our liberation from the British, from the Brits, the Britons. And we declare ourselves to be independent and declare ourselves to be those who are able to chart our own course through the document, the Declaration of Independence. And so my mom, I wish I had seen her yesterday. Was that yesterday? So she left out of here. She had a little headband on. She had a red, white, and blue clothes on. She had a sparkly thing around her neck. Like, she, from head to toe, she was celebrating this particular holiday. But one thing I can say about my mom, she is consistent. She celebrates all the holidays. So she does that for every one of them. I myself do not celebrate the 4th of July. I don't celebrate any holidays anymore. It's just not something that I'm interested in doing. And on this day, when we were talking about independence, there was an event that happened at a bookstore, at the Black bookstore here in Little Rock, Pyramid Arts, Books, and Custom Framing. There was an event where one of the local pastors, Reverend Wendell Griffin, he read the entire speech that Frederick Douglass delivered in 1852 in Rochester, New York. He was asked to to give a speech that was commemorating, honoring the 4th of July. And so he accepts the invitation, and he stands up and delivers this speech that it took Reverend Griffin 1 hour and 30 minutes to read. I have never even heard the entire speech until today. I've read excerpts of it, I've delivered excerpts of it, but this was the first time that I ever took the time to read the entire speech. And I'm so glad that I did. And as we sat there and listened to Reverend Griffin read the words of Frederick Douglass, one thing became crystal clear. I mean, it was no way, if you were listening, the only way that you could miss it is if you were not listening. But it became crystal clear that Frederick Douglass was issuing a scathing indictment against the American Christian church for its complicity in the system of enslavement. And it was scathing indictment to say that we will not and we have not and we do not have a history of raising up against the atrocities against the Black body, against the African body, all members of the African diaspora. We did not raise up, and we dare not raise up even now. The conversation continued after the speech was delivered by Reverend Griffin. As a church, as an institution, as a religion, as Christians, we do not raise up as a church to condemn the very evils of humans against other humans. And so that got me, I was already thinking about my resistance to celebrating independence, because I do not believe that Black folks are free. I do not believe that we are independent. I do not believe that we have been liberated, and that struggle continues. And so it's interesting to me that we would celebrate, that we would go out and have this high time in the name of independence when we struggle even now against systems that deny us adequate health care that is competent and culturally sensitive. We are denied access to housing in the ways that we deserve. Our children are not being adequately educated because of the color of our skin. The Supreme Court just just overturned affirmative action, which also the Supreme Court also upholds voter suppression by when they gutted that part in the Voter Rights Act. Like, there are all of these overt and obvious acts of violence against Black bodies in this country. And yet we say, I want to celebrate my independence on this day. Well, whose independence is it? And that's one of the questions that Frederick Douglass entertains as he is talking about, as he's delivering this speech. He even asks the question, why would you even ask me? When the people who look like me are constantly being denied independence in the face of people who look like you, talking about white folks, why would you even ask me to come here? What is it that you thought I was going to do? And I think that people expected him to celebrate and to be so glad that he was invited into this space with all of these dignitaries and with all of these folks who stand as leaders in that particular space, that he would be so glad to be in the number, that he would not speak his truth as a Black man in America who was formerly enslaved himself, about what the church has not done, what this country has not done to liberate folks who look like me, who look like my mom, who look like all members of the African diaspora. And so it's if you are willing, I think it was probably easier to read along than it is to read by yourself. But I absolutely, positively recommend that speech to those of you who have not read it in its entirety. And again, I already cautioned you beforehand that it took an hour and 30 minutes for it to be read. So that's 90 minutes of reading that you would have to commit to, whether you break it up into pieces or not, whatever works for you. And so, as I was thinking about Independence Day, and as I was thinking about my resistance to it, and as I was thinking about my hope that other people will begin to resist it as well, to use it as an opportunity for us to challenge each other, to challenge systems, to challenge society, to challenge our families, to challenge our friends, to challenge ourselves, to really think about what it is that we do when we just blindly follow these holidays. We blindly celebrate these events. We blindly follow into the traditions of these activities without thinking about the ramifications of them on the very present lives that we live. I've been thinking about that, and it brought up for me Numbers chapter 11. Well, actually, it didn't bring it up. I actually was led there by a sermon. Hey, Miss McClay. So good to see you. Thank you for joining us on this night. My love to John as well, of course. Nikki preached on Sunday. She was preaching from Numbers chapter 11. I think she started at verse 11 and read into our hearing and preached the gospel from Numbers chapter 11, verses 11 through 15. And as she always does, she inspires me to think about the text in an entirely different way. So she's talking about the text and reminding us through the text that we are human and that we should live into the limitations of our humanity, so that we get to the point that we understand that God already knows that we are not able, we are not even created to be the super Christians that many of us believe ourselves to be, because we've been conditioned to believe we're supposed to be super Christians, where no matter what happens, don't worry about it because God's got it. That we are never supposed to worry, that we are always supposed to be positive, that we are always supposed to find the good in even the bad things that happen to us, the traumatic things, and just we call it the devil trying to work it out, trying to intend it for our bad, but God working it out for our good. We have all of these little cliches that do not allow us to sit with the human feelings that come along with this life, but we try to rise above it in this theological, supernatural way that renders us actually useless to those of us who are trying to navigate this life. I remember there was a pastor, I think it was Pastor John C. Evans, who used to say that some of us are so heavenly bound that we are not any earthly good, that we're trying to live in this realm of being super Christian, being superhuman, that we are not able to relate to what's happening in our midst. We are not able to relate to people who are going through. We are not able to show up for folks who need us, who are in dire straits. And they don't need us to quote the Bible. They need us to show up with hands and feet and hands and feet, hearts and minds, and be willing to do the work that is required to manifest God in their midst. And so I was thinking, so that's what she's talking about, that it is okay for us. As a matter of fact, it's not okay, it is necessary for us to realize the limitations of our humanity and to embrace them, and to know that God already knows the limitations and does not expect us to exceed those limitations, but comes alongside us to help us when we are in need. Even before we ask, God is already at work helping us. This is the sermon that she's preaching on Sunday at New Beginnings Church of Central Arkansas, to which all of you are invited. If your theology allows you to worship with people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, two-spirited, asexual, agender, intersex, queer, pansexual, if your theology is broad enough to know that God is in our midst, even when our sexual orientation is not that which is upheld in this world in which we live, this heteronormative world, this heterosexist world in which we live. So if you're able to do that, and to find God in everybody, then you are welcome in that space. If you're not able to do that, then don't come. We don't need your negative energy in the space. We're trying to worship the true and living God in a very real and meaningful way. And so that's what was happening on Sunday. And as I was listening to Nikki and writing down all the points, she always gives points, I couldn't let go of the text itself. And so here's me walking through a door. I talked to you about the ways that you can engage with the good fight by walking through the door. So here's me walking through a door that, even though she read it on Sunday, when she preached it on Sunday, here it is Tuesday, and I'm still wrestling with this text that's found in Numbers chapter 11. And I'm going to start actually at verse 10, reading verses 10 through 15 for us in just a moment. But I do want to kind of set it up just a little bit. I don't want to get into too much of the history, but here you have Moses, who is called to be the leader of God's people. And anytime anybody is called to be the leader in my life, I am always called. I just believe at this point, I just believe it is just who I am, it's who I was created to be. Sometimes we're called into spaces and we think it's for a season. And sometimes we feel like imposters because we really don't believe that we belong in that space. But I've gotten to the point now in my life where I do believe I was created to be a leader. And when you come to find yourself in a leadership position, whether you believe yourself called to be there or whether somebody thrusts you into that position, whether you feel uncertain in the position, regardless of how you got there or what you're feeling in the space, if you hold the position of leader, that is a lonely road. It is a lonely road because you cannot satisfy the people that you lead. There's no way that you can satisfy. There's so many different personalities. There's so many different agendas. There's so many different perspectives. There's so many different. Thank you, Miss McClay. Miss Luella say, "Amen. You are a great leader." Oh, I forgot. I can put it up on here. Thank you. I appreciate those words. And so there's no way that you can satisfy the people that you lead because there's so much happening within them, first of all. Every individual has their own set of circumstances, has their own set of situations, has their own set of what's happening in their lives that they are dealing with in every single moment, that they themselves are a work within themselves, all by themselves. That is happening with every single person you are called to lead. And when you are called, even if you are called to lead only 2 people, even if you're called to lead 5 people, if you're called to lead 10 people, if you're called to lead 100 people, you are dealing with that many people going through whatever it is they are going through as life happens to them on a daily basis. So one by one, you're dealing with folks. And then you're dealing with those people as a collective. And so you're dealing with whatever the number is, you're dealing with them as individuals, and you are dealing with them as a group. And then within the group, there are groups. Because people have a tendency, because we are limited by our humanity, because we are frail in our personalities and in our psyches, we have a tendency to align ourselves with people who look like us, think like us, act like us, make us feel good. So we have groups within the groups. So you got individuals, and then you have the whole big collective, and then you got little bitty collectives that are happening, and yet you are called to lead all of them. And in your leadership, you are expected to do a work that is great and profound, a work that is transformative, a work that changes hearts and minds and situations and circumstances and leads us to a better place. That's what you're called to do in any space as a leader. Hey, Miss Norweeda. Miss Norweeda says she say greetings. I don't know if she could see you. Because of how I had the screen. Thank you for being here, Miss Norweeda. So we're talking about Moses in the book of Numbers, chapter 11. We haven't read it yet, but we'll read it in just a minute. So you're called to do this work as a leader of however many people it is, and you're dealing with people as individuals. You're dealing with the entire group as a collective, and you're dealing with, what do we call them? You're dealing with the cliques. You're dealing with the cliques that have that align themselves to each other and create their own individual small groups within the larger group. You're dealing with all of that. Oh, she said she could see the top of your head. There she is. We don't have good lighting because she doesn't even have her light turned on. But you're dealing with all of this and you are trying to do this work. And for those of us who are faithful, and it doesn't matter what you are, when I say faithful, you believe, you have a confidence in something. It could be a confidence in yourself. It could be a confidence in the God we call Jesus. It could be a confidence in the God we call Buddha or Allah. It could be confidence in the universe. Whatever that belief system is, it leads you to want to make sure that you exceed the expectations that people have for you because you feel yourself being called to a greater level of work because you believe something higher has put you in this position. And so you want to attain whatever those goals are. And so Moses is having that kind of experience because he is called by God to be the leader of these people, leading them from one situation and circumstance into the newness of the life that God is calling them to in a different place. But Moses don't want to be no leader. How many of you have been in positions where this is not what you signed up for? You ended up somewhere and you like, wait a minute, I didn't ask for this. And then as you rock on in that position, things begin to happen. And you're like, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't want this. I didn't ask for this. This does not define me. I don't even know how I got here. I woke up one day and here I am. And so Moses is feeling some level of frustration because he's having to lead a group of people who in some respects don't want to be led. All they want to do is complain. Complain. Sometimes I think we forget that song. I can't even think of the who sings it right now. I won't complain. Who sings that song? I'm looking it up right now. I won't complain. Reverend Paul Jones. I've had some good days. And I've had some hills to climb. I've had some weary days and some lonely nights. But when I look around and I think things over, all of my good days outweigh my bad days, so I won't complain. And so many of us sometimes forget that there's a gift to the leaders in our midst when we choose not to complain. But on the other side of that, it is important that sometimes we do raise our voices in complaint so that we can challenge what is happening in our midst. Because when we don't, when we listen to the song too spiritually, when we become too holy in the song, we believe that it makes us more godly not to complain. And then that makes us accept whatever situation people give to us. And that is not what God is calling us to do at all. So it's a both and that we have to deal with when we talk about what it means to complain. Because sometimes we are raising up our voices in the complaint for justice. And other times we are raising up our voices as a complaint because we're selfish. And because we're spoiled brats. And because we're lazy. So the complaint can be viewed in more than one way. And I want to make sure I honor both of those ways and indict only one while lifting up the other. So Moses has a group of people, and several of them are complaining to him on a regular basis. And then when he's got so many people and they all decide to complain, even if it's not all of them, if it's 50% of 1,000 people, that's 500 folks in your ear complaining. That's a lot. So Moses is frustrated, and in his frustration, he lashes out. He lashes out in a way that I believe we all need to learn to lash out. He lashes out to the one who has the power to change things. Sometimes we have, as a world that we're living in now, where we are living under these systems of oppression and discrimination, we need to raise our complaints against the power structure that can affect change. But instead, we find ourselves, we give in to the game that people are playing with our lives, and we lash out to people who are like us. We lash out to each other. We lash out to our family members, to our lovers, to our spouses, to our friends, to our sisters and our siblings and our gender non-conforming neighbors. We lash out to each other, but we are not the ones who have the power to affect the change that we need, that's causing us to feel what we're feeling in our bodies. So we've got misplaced anger and misguided rage that we allow to fester and then explode on the ones that are closest to us, and usually the ones that love us the most. And so Moses decides, I'm not going to lash out to the people, against the people. I'm going to raise my voice up to the God, the one who is the source of all of my troubles, because that's the only one who can change my situation. And so that's where we are in this text that I want to read for us. Want to do the same thing, want to put it up on the screen so that you can read along, so that you are reading for yourself. Also want to take a moment after the verses have been read to just pause. I usually count to about 7 because I have to practice pausing. I have to practice the Selah because a lot of times we just really don't take time to just stop. and still ourselves. And so sometimes, even for me, one who practices stillness on a regular basis, I still have to count to make sure that I'm honoring silence, because that sometimes is all we need to help us move forward. So I'm going to put it up on the screen. I'm going to read it for us. I'm going to pause for just a moment and let us calmly think about what has been read, what we have read along with, and then just think about it before talking more. That's where we are. So here comes Numbers, and this is the Living Bible translation of Numbers chapter 11, verses verses 10 through 15. Moses heard all the families standing around their tent doors weeping, and the anger of the Lord grew hot. Moses too was highly displeased. Moses said to the Lord, "Why pick on me to give me the burden of a people like this? Are they my children? Am I their father? Is that why you have given me the job of nursing them along like babies until we get to the land you promised their ancestors? Where am I supposed to get meat for all of these people? For they weep to me, saying, 'Give us meat.' I can't carry this nation by myself. The load is far too heavy. If you are going to treat me like this, please kill me right now. It will be a kindness. Let me out of this impossible situation." So that's Moses chapter 11, verses 10 through 15. Phyllis Brown has a comment here. Let me put it on the screen for us all to see. A comment made today was to blame ourselves, Black people, for our conditions, yet fail to condemn laws that prohibit justice for us. A comment made today was to blame ourselves, to blame Black people for our conditions, yet fail to condemn laws that prohibit justice for us. I'm a little bit ouched by this comment. And I think that that's great. I feel a little ouch in the words of Phyllis Brown, saying that sometimes um, we blame ourselves for situations that are beyond our control. I was at a birthday party on Sunday. Happy birthday, Bruce James. I was at a birthday party on Sunday, and I remember saying out loud to the table at which I was sitting, I remember saying, um, everything ain't the white man's fault. That um, there are some things that we do to ourselves. And so as I was reading those words, as you know, sometimes we blame ourselves without really calling on the carpet those systems of injustice and oppression that have created these systems for us. Yeah, I think I may fall prey to that at times. But when we think about any condition that we are in, whether it's poverty, whether it's lack of access to healthcare, whether it's inadequate education, whether it's substandard housing, whether it is racism or sexism or homophobia or transphobia or classism, all of the isms, ableism, ageism, talking about the phobias, fat phobia, whatever the isms are that we are wrestling with in this world today, they were created by design on purpose. And so those of us who are suffering from those systems of oppression and discrimination and dehumanization, how dare you fault me for the situation that I am in? How dare you look at me and say you ought to be doing better? How dare you look at me and say, what's wrong with you? One of the things that I do with students in the Pulaski County Special School District, I show up to talk about social emotional learning. And one of the things that I am teaching them to stop doing, and one of the things that I'm teaching them to stop doing, is to ask the question, what did you do? What did you do? Stop asking that question, right? Because if we're going to talk about social emotional learning, if we are going to give honor to the lives that people are living under the knee, as the knee of the system is on our necks, if we're going to give honor to the lives that we are struggling to thrive with in the face of all of what is happening to us and around us, the question is, what happened to you? Not what did you do, but what happened to you? And so when we are talking about Frederick Douglass and this country celebrating its independence on today, and you're still looking at Black people who are living in the ghetto, you're still looking at Black people who are making less than minimum wage, struggling to feed their families, struggling to have viable relationships with their children because they don't have time to give themselves over to what it means to nurture the parent-child relationship. Stop looking at us as Black folks as people who are victims of these systems, not just Black folks, poor white people, people of color, disabled folks, women. Stop looking at us and saying, what did you do to cause this to be your situation and your circumstance, but rather ask the question, what happened to you? What happened to your people? What happened to your children? What is happening to them even now as I speak? That becomes the question. And that makes us, it forces us to look beyond the individual to the system. And I talk to people all the time. I keep getting blamed for being racist. I keep getting blamed for being one who promotes hate. I keep getting blamed for all of those, keep getting labeled in all of those ways when in actuality, I continue to say, I don't fight people. I don't come for people, but I come for systems. And we have to be willing to do that. And if you are complicit in the system, if you benefit from the system and that causes you to go silent, then yes, you may feel like I'm coming for you, but it's only because you have not pushed past your individual self to ask the question about what is happening to us as a result of these systems that are in place, that we continue to allow to run rampant in our space because we are not willing to dismantle them, because we continue to benefit from them. We are their benefactors on some level. And so when Moses is dealing with these people who are complaining, they're complaining about their situation, they're complaining about their circumstances, they are hungry, they're asking for meat. Is that too much to ask for? Like, who's mad at people for asking for meat? Those who criminalize the hungry. That's who's mad about it. These people are saying we don't have the basic needs that our bodies require in order for us to make this trek to the promised land. What good is a promised land if I can't arrive there? What good is the meat you offer me, the milk and the honey that comes in this space of 40 days and 40 nights? I'm thinking about some of their travels. What good is it to say to me that this is what is available for you if my body cannot sustain the journey? Why am I excited about something that will not be realized for me? Why are you tempting me, dangling this carrot in front of me and expecting me to put my body on the line when you know full well that my body needs nourishment in order to survive, in order to thrive, in order to do the work that you are calling me to do? And so Moses has these people nipping at his heels saying, look, you're the leader, you need to change our situation. And Moses, first of all, has a little bit of a moment. This is what Nikki is Nikki, the one who was preaching on Sunday. This is what her whole title was about. He has a meltdown moment. He was like, wait a minute, look, I ain't signed up for this. I don't want to deal with all this. Who wants to be a leader of this mess? This is mess. This is foolishness, ridiculousness for you to think that I can handle all of these people all by myself. I can't do this. I didn't ask for this. You know what? You ought to just kill me, because if this is what you think you're calling me to do, I ain't here for it. He has that moment. And we need those moments. We need moments where we say, it's too much. It's too much. We need those moments where we recognize that, because it forces us to pause. When our bodies get to the point where we can no longer keep going, usually it happens when we're sick. Our bodies get sick. We catch a cold, catch pneumonia, whatever it is, it puts us on our back. Sometimes it's because we're too stressed, because we're trying to be someone that we cannot be. Moses recognizes, you asking too much of me. Some of us are asking too much of our parents. We're asking too much of our preachers. We're asking too much of our spouses. We're asking too much of our friends, and we're asking nothing of the systems. We're asking nothing of the politicians who are helping to perpetuate these systems. We're asking nothing of the benefactors of these systems. We're so busy asking regular folks. When I say regular folks, those who are directly impacted by the systems, we're so busy asking them to be more than what they can be in the midst of their trials, without asking the people who can make a difference anything at all. And so Moses doesn't make that particular mistake. Moses says, I'm not even finna ask y'all to do better. I'm not even finna deal with y'all. This is not even y'all's problem. I recognize that you are hungry. I recognize that you are frustrated. I know that you are tired and hot. So let me go to the source of the one who can fix this. And Moses goes to God and rails. Oh, Vernon says, asking for help. That's Vernon. How? Some of us, it's so hard for us to ask for help, especially as Black folks. Why? Because we've been conditioned. Never let them see you sweat. We've been conditioned that we got to prove that we are more than they say that we are. We got to work harder. What was I taught? You got to work. You got to be better than the best of them in order to be considered mediocre. So you cannot ask for help. And it's killing our bodies not to ask for help. It's damaging our minds not to ask for help. It's setting us up with false assurances. In the work that I'm in, the class that I'm taking to become a phlebotomist, it says that one of the things that we must not do with patients who show up to have their blood drawn, we must not say to them that this is not going to hurt. Because we are setting up for them a false assurance. I am about to stick a needle in your vein. It is going to hurt. By design, it hurts. Anytime somebody sticks a needle in your vein and blood is going to be extracted, there is pain involved. So for me to tell you that it's not, that is a false sense of assurance that is not acceptable in this professional arena. So if it's not acceptable at the hospital, it surely ain't acceptable in God's house. We have to stop creating these false narratives and expecting people to live up to them when we know by design they cannot. One of the things that happened in the Old Testament, one of the reasons that we have Jesus in the flesh, or as Mr. Willie would say, in the flesh. One of the reasons we have Jesus in the flesh is because the people came to realize that we cannot live out these 613 laws y'all came up with after the 10 Commandments were set forth. We added all this, don't do this, don't do that, do this, don't do it. And now we cannot even uphold them ourselves, those of us who believe ourselves to be called by God. And then we want to exact some revenge on other people who cannot hold up to the same things that we are that we are failing at. So learning to ask for help, Moses demonstrates for us, it is okay. It is okay for you to realize the limitations of your call. And it is okay for you to go to God mad about it. I don't understand why we think God cannot handle our anger. I don't think why we don't believe that God can handle our questions. You know, some of us come from a tradition that says you can't question God. Why not? Is God that fragile that God can't answer a question? You can't make God feel like you don't think God knows what God is doing. Sometimes I wonder, God, are you paying attention over here? Are you noticing what's happening over here? Where are you in the midst of the death and the destruction and the hunger and the poverty and the children that are being molested and killed? Where are you? And if God can't handle that kind of question, then how omnipotent is he? Is God? God is not male or female. How omnipotent is God? How all-knowing, omniscient is God? So we've got to be able to give ourselves permission to ask for help and to be gracious enough to give other people permission to ask for help and to allow them, even when we ask them for help, to say, I don't even know. I don't even know how to help. I was talking to a pastor friend of mine, and he was saying that many times as a pastor, he finds himself getting caught up in in these situations where he feels like he must give an answer to the people of God, or else they will feel like he's incompetent. And I was like, so even if the answer, even if you don't know the answer, even if I don't know the answer, I gotta look like I know, I gotta act like I know. Even if the answer is gonna cause harm, it don't matter. I cannot afford for the people to see me as less than everything. I said, you that's not sustainable. That's not sustainable. And it's harmful for you, and it's harmful for the people that you lead. And so Moses says to us, it is okay to ask for help, and it's okay to ask God for help, and it's okay to be mad at God when you ask for help. How come you ain't sent us no help? Why I gotta come ask you? You see what's going on? This is what Moses is saying basically. You see these people? And you asking me to do this all by myself? I cannot. And Moses is frustrated. He's frustrated by the whole design of how he got here, expecting to be something that he cannot possibly be. Some of us have an expectation of white people that they cannot possibly be. White people cannot possibly be the superior ones that the narrative created them to be. It's not possible. You were not created to be superior, more superior. You were not created to be superior. You were not created to have people inferior to you. That's not God's design. So Moses is frustrated with the design of it all. How you gonna put one person in leadership in front of all these people with no help? The design is not sustainable. Superiority for white folks is not sustainable. Inferiority for Black folks and people of color is not sustainable. The design is flawed. Reverend Griffin was talking today. Someone asked a question about the Constitution. The question was something like this: is the Constitution a living document that should be changed, that should be revisited, or should we just scrap the Constitution altogether and start again? And so in his effort to answer the question, I don't think he really answered the question fully, but in his effort to answer the question, Reverend Griffin said, let me ask y'all something about baking a cake. Y'all, anybody in here know how to bake a cake? He didn't say that part. That's just me. I'm paraphrasing. I'm retelling the story my way. He said, if you are going to bake a cake, one of the key ingredients in a cake is sugar. If you leave out the sugar and you continue on with the rest of the recipe and you put it in the oven, and as it is baking in the oven, even if you wait until the oven dings and lets you know that it is done, if at that moment you realize that you have omitted the sugar, the first question becomes, is what I'm now looking at, is this that I have taken out of this oven, is it a cake? If it does not contain sugar, which is an essential ingredient, if it does not contain the essence of what makes it a cake, can you call it a cake? Is that possible? He said, well, you can add the cake. You can try to add the sugar later. Come on, let's melt down some sugar. Let's poke some holes in it and let's pour it over there. Let us see if the sugar can seep down into it. And so, okay, now, do we have a cake? We added the sugar later. Is it now a cake? Any baker worth its salt, baker worth his, her, their salt will say, that ain't no cake. That's just some sweet bread you done made now. But it can't be a cake. So if we look at the Constitution and how it was designed, saying that all men are created equal, while declaring Black folks 3/5 of humans, you can't make a cake out of that. You can't come and add on the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment and the 19th Amendment and say, okay, now we got a cake. No. You might have tried to sweeten something. And even that is arguable. We can argue that. But you can't make it what it was never designed to be. And so Moses says, this design that you have for leadership, where you have not given us the help that we need to lead your people, the design is flawed. What you gonna do about it? So the designs of the systems that are plaguing us even now, even the system of church, where you got United Methodists talking about people who are LGBTQ are not fit for the kingdom. The design is flawed. When you got a church that will not wrestle with its own internalized racism, your design is flawed. When you have people who think that it's okay for me to tithe to a church that does not have any ministry that feeds the hungry or supports the poor, the design is flawed. I don't care how much sugar you try to add to it later, it's not going to be a cake. So Moses goes to God, even in his anger and frustration, and says, I need some help. What you gonna do? And God says, I'm gonna help you. What you think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give you some help. And so one of the lessons that I learned from Moses in this is actually recorded somewhere in the Bible in the New Testament. I don't have the scripture to quote. I stopped trying to quote scriptures. All I need to know is that it's in there, especially nowadays with all this technology. It won't take me long to pull it up. But there is a verse that I consider to be a principle in my life, especially. It says, you have not because you ask not. So people get offended. I offend a lot of people because I ask a lot of questions, because I need to have the information. I need to have the education. I need to have the understanding so I'll know how to move. People don't want you to ask them questions. But in this case, how are you going to get what you need if you don't ask the question? What if Moses just rocked on in his frustration? What would have happened? He would have lashed out at those people, just like he lashed out against the rock that time. When we do not ask for what we need, we position ourselves to fail at it. At whatever position, at the leadership, whatever it is, we better position ourselves to fail by not asking for what we need. But here's another question. Do we even know what we need? Have we examined ourselves enough to say, I need some therapy? I need to divest myself from these systems. I need to stop being complicit in these, in what's happening in our midst. I need to vote. I need to do a better job with my children. Do you know what you need in your life? Or are you so busy working 9 to 5 to get a paycheck so you can buy more stuff? That same Nikki that was preaching on Sunday, one time she preached a sermon and she was talking about those of us who have storage units. And she said, we have so much excess that we pay somebody to store our junk. Are we so busy trying to accumulate more stuff? I don't want to call y'all stuff junk because I don't want to offend you. Are we so busy that we don't take the time to selah about our own lives? Pause and calmly think about our own lives so that we can recognize that there's something happening in my body for which I need help to stop. A faulty thinking, faulty spending, faulty behavior, faulty reactions, faulty initiations. And I need somebody to help me see myself so that I can find a way out of this. Moses says, ask for what you need, because there is a God that can give it to you. And when I say there is a God that can give it to you, I'm not talking about the God that's in the sky. I'm talking about the gods that you look at every day. India Ari sings the song, I see God in you. You are the divine expression. So when I see you, I see God. You are the reflection of the expression of, you are God in the flesh. You are Jesus in this space. That's who Jesus is, God in the flesh. Here you are, you show up as divine. I'm asking you for help. What would it take for us to get to the point where we feel okay asking each other for help? Oh, especially when it comes to finances. We don't want nobody to know our financial situation. There's somebody you can trust with it, I promise you. There is a God that you can trust with, what's very sacred and holy to you, who can help you. But people can't help you if they don't know. I'll never forget, there's a woman right now. Honestly, I cannot remember her name, and that is probably a testament to the trauma that I experienced from her. I cannot think of her name. But one day she called me and said, I mean, she just went off. Thought you were my friend. I thought you were holy. I thought you were a woman of God. I thought that you were one who had been sent to our church for such a time as this to lead us in the way that God is calling us to go. She said, I thought that's who you were, but you are none of those things. Because when I needed you the most, you did not show up for me. And I said, when did you need me? She said, I lost my house. And now my children are homeless. And you did nothing. And I said, when did you look? Wait, what? And so she's going off and off, and she's going off on me. She's indicting me. She's just railing against me. And I just, at some point, I just had to say, just hold on for just a minute. Tell me, when did you tell me about your house? Because I just could not believe that I ignored her. I could not believe that the person that I'm working so hard to be every day would see somebody in that kind of distress and know that your children are about to be homeless, and I ignored you. I did not do anything. I did not offer to help with out of my own pocket. I did not offer any resources. I did not come and pick you up and take you to the places where you needed to go to find them. Like, I didn't do anything. I didn't even pray for you. That's the least I could do. I can't believe I didn't do anything. And she said to me, I never told you. I said, well, if you didn't tell me, how was I supposed to know? She said, if you were the woman of God that you say you are, then God should have told you that I needed help. And from that day to this one, that had to be in the year, that was before I became pastor. That was before I went to seminary. So we're talking before 1999. From that day to this one, she has not said another word to me. The first thing Moses teaches us to understand the limits of our humanity. Can't nobody read your mind. That's not how God works. There are times when serendipitous things happen. There are some times when you have a dream that gives you some insight. There are some times when those things happen. But by and large, if you don't tell me, I won't know. Ask for what you need. Start with small things to work your way up to the bigger, more sacred things so that you can get into the practice of it. Because I cannot come alongside you. We cannot come alongside each other. We cannot embrace each other in the spirit of oneness if we are unaware. And even if you are angry in your asking for help, many of us know how to recognize that anger for what it is, not personal. Life has made you angry. These systems have enraged you. We can feel that. We get that. We know what that feels like on some level, many of us. And we can see beyond that to meet you at the point of your need. So when we think about this Independence Day and all these holidays, we have to recognize that they are flawed by design, and that we have to begin to open up our mouths and rail against the systems that designed them and divest ourselves from the system. Say, I'm not doing this anymore. Or I'm going to do it in a different way. Because that's one of the things I said. Like, I'm not going to tell anybody not to celebrate the 4th of July. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I fight for freedom. How am I going to take yours away? But I do ask us to think about what conversations we're having when we are celebrating. And that's what Frederick Douglass was pushing us to do today. this freedom and this independence, has it been extended to us, people that look like me? He asks. That's the critical question. This faithfulness in this God that we serve, has it been extended to everyone? I used to serve communion, and at the end of communion, I would ask, has everyone been served? And people would automatically say yes. Has everyone been served? And people would say yes. Has everyone been served? And they would say, oh, she's asking us something deeper. Yes, I am. I'm asking you, has every person beyond these four walls been served by this good news that we call the gospel? The only way they can be served is if we go and serve them. Have we thought about these designs that frustrate us to no end? And have we raised the critical questions to the ones who can make a difference so that everyone can be served? That's the question that I pose to you on this Independence Day. Whatever your thoughts are, I'm excited to hear them. Send me your questions and your comments and your concerns. Let's talk about it. Let's walk through a door together. Thank you so much for joining us for the good fight. We are out of here. T, you want to wave or something to let people know we gone? Bye. We'll see you next week. It'll be a pre-record. The next 3 weeks will be pre-recorded, but I do hope that you will join in and send your comments as you can. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.